mid-60s, a major change took place in the character of the fighting in Vietnam. Large numbers of American combat troops began to arrive. Until then, the fighting had been handled by Vietnamese forces, with American troops serving primarily as advisors. The enemy, unable to defeat this combination with primarily guerrilla-type forces and operations, had begun bringing in regular North Vietnamese Army units in large numbers. It was in response to this massive influx of North Vietnamese troops that United States combat units were sent to Vietnam. These troops did what they came to do. They carried the fight to the enemy where he lived. The aims of the aggressor were checked again. And at the same time, the armed forces of South Vietnam were growing both in size and capability. This took a big jump forward when the national mobilization laws were enacted. Throughout Vietnam, it was recognized that providing real security for all the people was essential. And that if the job were to stick, it would have to be done by the government of South Vietnam itself. With the end of the 1960s, the time had come for another major change in the character of the war in Vietnam. That is, free world forces would begin to phase out of the war as the people and the armed forces of South Vietnam became capable of filling the gap. The term that has been used to describe this change is Vietnamization of the war. Vietnamization means Vietnamese armed forces taking over, but it also means, it has to mean, a great deal more. How much more, every Vietnamese soldier is helped to understand, since so much of the effectiveness of this effort will depend upon him. He learns that Vietnamization also means pacification, and that both terms take in a wide range of action: military, political, psychological, civic, social, economic. All of these, as they go forward, mean progress to peace. In this progress to peace, all the factors, military, educational, economic, political, psychological, and social, all interlock. None alone is an answer. But since there must be real security for the people in their daily lives before the other factors can be put to work, the first steps are primarily military. Security for the people. A chance to live their lives without being in constant fear of harassment and terrorism by the communists. The Vietnamese army, as it grows in size, experience, and capability, is making strides toward attaining this initial goal, taking over step by carefully coordinated step the areas of responsibility that have been held by American combat units. In planned stages, it has been extended to other areas. The Vietnamese Navy continues to function off the shores of Vietnam, keeping watch over the sea approaches. It also patrols the shoreline areas to intercept enemy shipments of arms and supplies. The Vietnamese Navy has also taken over from the United States Armed Forces in the highly effective riverine operations in the Mekong Delta country. Units of the Vietnamese Marine Corps enjoy a fully earned reputation as fighting men. and they continue to maintain that reputation as their forces are being expanded under the Vietnamization program. The Vietnamese Air Force has not yet reached a level of size that will enable it to meet fully the needs of combat over the whole nation. But its pilots are capable, and their numbers are growing under an intensive training program. The same kind of training effort is being applied to the pilots of helicopters as the Vietnamese armed forces push toward the day when they can meet all their combat and combat support needs using their own people. This program extends into the technical and support operations of all the Vietnamese armed forces. Hundreds of technical personnel have been trained in various levels of maintenance in such essential areas as transport, communications, and ordnance. Many of these have been trained in American technical schools outside Vietnam, and they return home not only to perform their new skills, but to teach them to others. Once a given area has been cleared of enemy main force units, the prime responsibility for ensuring local security rests with forces designed specifically for this job. One such is the regional force, which operates on the province level and ranges throughout its assigned territory as needed. These are company-sized units, permanently stationed in their given province and serving it. They continually seek out the Viet Cong, engage them in battle, and if necessary, call on ARVN or Allied forces to reinforce them or take over. At the district level, the platoon-sized units of the popular forces function. These are not as mobile as the regional forces. They rarely go far from their own hamlet. But they form an important part of the structure designed by the Vietnamese government to attain and then maintain security for the people. The popular forces typically protect points of control and communications in and around the towns and hamlets, checkpoints, government installations, warehouses, bridges, as well as the perimeters of the communities themselves. Both the regional and popular forces can call on the mobile advisory teams of the United States Army for advice and training help. Such teams assigned to province areas work with and through the province and district chiefs. At their request, the teams go wherever they're needed to help regional and popular forces improve their operations and do an even better job of providing for security on a local basis. On a still more local level, in the villages and in the hamlets, boys and older men participate in the people's self-defense forces. Some women serve, too, in support capacities. The boys and men, either too young or too old for regular military service, do an important job providing village self-defense, mounting regular and successful ambush patrols against the VC. Perhaps even more important is the mental atmosphere reflected by the very existence of these volunteer self-defense forces. On the one hand, the willingness of the people to be identified with the government, to accept it as their government and to stand against the Viet Cong. On the other hand, the willingness of the government to put its trust in the people, to provide them with arms and ammunition and training. And the People's Self-Defense Force is no small development. More than 3.5 million villagers have volunteered to take part. In addition to the forces which meet the threat of communist aggression from without, a major emphasis must be placed on rooting out the hidden communist structure within. In the cities of Vietnam and in the towns and hamlets, the National Police provides a prime answer to this need by augmenting the armed forces of South Vietnam. They are, along with the regional and popular forces, increasing the ones who maintain security in areas which have been made secure. More like the town police that we know are the policemen who work at the district and lower levels, assigned to hamlets and villages. They handle the usual things that township police handle: crime, disturbances among citizens, as well as some matters concerning the VC. Though in most action of this latter sort, he would call on the National Police Field Force or regional or popular force units for help. All of these forces direct their efforts toward achieving that first essential goal: security for the people, so that they can raise and sell their own produce, live their lives without the burden of constant fear. This security is growing. A prime indication of this is the massive increase in the number of local communities which have elected local governments throughout Vietnam. This happens only when the people of a village or hamlet are really convinced that the government's protection against Viet Cong terror is here to stay, because officials of local governments have been a prime target for VC assassination since the fighting began. Today, more than 90% of all hamlets and villages have elected local governments. This is a big step and an important one, a development that has really mushroomed since early 1969. The communist failure to win over the people became even more apparent under the Army of Vietnam and Regional Forces Protection. The South Vietnamese intensified their program of building. New roads, bridges, schools, and other public facilities began to dot the landscape. Today, there are hundreds of thousands of Vietnamese enjoying government protection. They are beginning at last to live without fear and to build with confidence for the future. But security, as we said, while it must be the first step, is only the first step. The Vietnamese government's follow-through takes many forms. One of these is seen in the members of the Rural Development Cadres, the RDCs. They work in specially trained 30-man teams, lightly armed and well able to lead and to teach villagers the techniques of local self-defense. But this is by no means their whole job. They are also teachers for the children. Each RDC team includes a wide range of know-how. They are trained administrators, people who know how to set up a dispensary and get it running. People who can help with planning and village sanitation or agriculture or marketing. In their own words, they encourage by good example. They live with the people, work with them. They demonstrate by what they do that the government is interested in the people and in helping them help themselves. Working with the newly elected village council, the RDCs help in the planning of community improvements and show the council how to apply to the national government for funds under the Village Self-Help Development Program. In short, they help local self-government and self-development get rolling. And this is filling a long-standing vacuum in terms of local government in Vietnam. Until 1954, in many areas, the entire administrative system, often down to the village level, was run by the French. When they left, the resulting vacuum was made worse, as the Viet Cong systematically murdered village leaders and teachers. Now, with more than 9 out of 10 hamlets and villages working under elected local governments, the situation is changing for the better. Many of the new capabilities that are helping the entire nation are cultivated here at the training facility called the National Cadre Training Center at Vung Tau. Newly elected hamlet officials receive training here to help them get started in the business of local government. The 30-man teams of the rural development cadres receive their training here, and Popular Forces instructor cadres are also trained for their work at the Vung Tau Center. Village technical people, such as village sanitation chiefs, dispensary personnel, and administrative specialists are schooled here too. So all of these people go back to their villages and hamlets with at least basic know-how to guide them as they begin working out the social and civic and economic progress of their individual community. Once local elections have been held and a new local council gets organized, it comes up with a decision as to some prime need of the village. For example, a school. They're eligible for government funds to help in providing their own answer to that need. They decide what the need is. They will contribute their muscle and sweat. The government will contribute funds from the Village Development Program. If the project is fairly large scale, perhaps some materials will be provided by AID, the American Agency for International Development, and technical help by the Vietnamese government. Another vital effort being made by the government with U.S. help is the continuing program of improving and extending the road and waterway networks of Vietnam. Thousands of square miles of area, which before were largely isolated, are now becoming readily accessible. Primary roads and waterways provide a tremendous boost to economic activity, create ready avenues for the movement of goods of all kinds. They are also vital to the development of local governments. If the VC can keep a village isolated, they can keep it dominated. Every road means just that much less isolation. It also provides a route for quick action by Vietnamese Army or regional force units if a village or hamlet needs help. The economic impact of this program can be startling. One large town, which formerly existed in virtual isolation, now has a good primary road. With transport of goods so much easier, the cost of living in the town has dropped by 40%. Another sweeping element of change in the pacification effort is the land reform program. The government is in the process of transferring ownership to the farmers who work the land and compensating the former owners. Former colonial lands have been given over to local ownership, and the program calls for more action in the same direction as more and more areas are made secure. People living and working on land that now belongs to them, not someone else. This, too, is a factor in people identifying with the government. Government funds may further underscore the point made by its land reform programs. For example, rural credit loans make it possible for a group of farmers to get together and buy farm machinery which they can share to till their land with an efficiency unknown in the past. The same kind of loan may enable a fisherman's cooperative to replace heavy, easily torn fiber nets with light, long-lasting ones of nylon. These are only two from dozens of possible examples. But whatever the specific need they provide, such loans are further evidence that the government is in fact concerned with the progress of the people and is working to further that progress. The staple crop of Asia, of course, is rice. And a major step forward in the economy of South Vietnam has been the introduction of the so-called miracle rice, designated IR8. This high-yield rice produces 2 to 3 times greater volume at harvest time. Once the farmers realized this, the planting goals were quickly exceeded. In fact, self-sufficiency in rice is now in sight for the Republic of Vietnam, even in excess for export. It's a giant step toward one of the cornerstones of peace, a stronger, more self-sufficient economy. Another aspect of pacification is the resettlement of the masses of people who were evacuated from battle-torn areas to become refugees. With wider security being established throughout the country, there has been great progress in resettlement. Most refugees return to their former homes, often with government assistance in the form of a resettlement allowance, something to help them settle back in. The price of a new cow or tin roofing to rebuild their house, depending on what they've lost and what they need to get started again. Those who don't return to their home areas often go to new locations, perhaps to lands provided under the land reform program. Or they may simply decide that the refugee hamlet in which they've been living can be a self-supporting community. They've put down new roots, established a new way of life. They elect officials for their new community and go to work to make it thrive. No account of the progress of Vietnamization and pacification would be complete without at least a brief examination of the returnee program known as Chu Hoi. This is a government program which offers full amnesty to Viet Cong and even North Vietnamese army troops who decide to leave the communist ranks and join with the South. The VC, or NVA man who makes this decision, is sent to a center where he receives food, clothing, and medical care. He is sent through a course of re-indoctrination. Between 1965 and the end of 1970, more than 150,000 Viet Cong and North Vietnamese army soldiers have come over to the South. Before the returnee leaves the Chu Hoi Center, he is taught a trade. He then goes to a Chu Hoi village or back to his home. He, too, has become one committed to the Republic of Vietnam because he knows that he is now a Viet Cong target. But he also knows that his amnesty goes all the way. He is a fully accepted citizen. He can qualify to vote or serve in regional or popular forces back in his home region. The Chu Hoi returnee may work with an armed propaganda team, going out to tell the story of his own experience to the VC in the countryside in an effort to persuade others that the Chu Hoi program does in fact mean what it says. genuine amnesty. All of these activities, programs, policies, have as their objective the attainment of a situation in which the people of Vietnam can determine the way they want to live their lives and then live them free from constant fear. As large numbers of American forces are returned home, Vietnamization proceeds. Vietnamization, pacification, these are words, but they stand for and attempt to define a condition of life for millions of people. The establishment of area security by military means and with the follow-up of national police protection, then the building up of stronger local and national government, greater productivity in the economy of the nation and hamlet. All of these are part of that definition. And all interlock and depend on one another, just as do the lives of the people. This program, as it succeeds, is deadly to the aims of the communist enemy. He knows this. He's not likely to just let it happen. So, it will take a continuing and massive effort on the part of all concerned. The enemy will do anything he can to disrupt it, but so far the progress has been such as to warrant a cautious air of optimism. The objective is clear. Some of the means to achieve it are beginning to work. The outlook for the future carries something more of hope. Self-government, self-development, self-defense at the national level, and at the village level. In all these, the beginning steps are being taken toward progress to peace.
At dawn, somewhere deep within the Mekong River Delta, a South Vietnamese river assault group moves against the Viet Cong. With it goes a young American Navy lieutenant. He serves in a guerrilla war of seek and destroy. Yet here, far from destroyer and aircraft carrier, he is the American Navy in Vietnam. On Yankee Station, somewhere in the South China Sea, another more familiar view of the American Navy in Vietnam. The mammoth Kitty Hawk, second largest of U.S. attack carriers, turns into the wind to launch its airborne striking force. Not far away along the coast, other units of the U.S. 7th Fleet take careful aim on call from troops fighting ashore and place supporting fire on Viet Cong concentrations. Farther south, another kind of armed strength prepares to go ashore. The most effective means known for gaining and holding a piece of ground. The individual fighting man, the United States Marine.
It's a pack billeting office. Alan speaking. Can I help you, sir?
Inland at Saigon, a Navy chief works at a different kind of job. Less glamorous, but vitally important.
Nichols, the assignment desk clerk will help you, sir.
Behind the guns and planes and fighting men is a staff of Navy, Army, and Air Force personnel who administers support activities for Allied forces throughout the country.
And your dates you arrived in Vietnam, sir?
3 August.
3 August.
Here, this is for the baby.
East of Saigon, at a small village near the coast, these men have gone beyond their basic mission of military action to launch an equally important campaign of civic action, another side of the American Navy in Vietnam. To these men, their work on projects which will result in civic achievement is just as important as the work their shipmates do in more conventional naval surroundings. I'm Chet Huntley. To most of us, this is the United States Navy. The aircraft carrier, the cruiser, and destroyer. The modern deep water Navy, extending American strength across the oceans of the world. But in Vietnam, the American Navy has done an unprecedented variety of different jobs. It has held command responsibility for all support activities. With the Army, it has been advisor to the South Vietnamese and has sent the Marines to help fight the land war. With the Air Force, it flies the planes which provide air power. And with civilian agencies, it pursues a vigorous program of civic action. These are the all-around capabilities demonstrated by a modern, versatile naval force in action. The American Navy in Vietnam. July 1964. Off the coast of Vietnam, units of the United States 7th Fleet patrol the waters of the South China Sea. To help the people of South Vietnam defend themselves against the threat of an armed communist takeover, the United States and other countries have begun a flow of economic, technical, and financial aid, a joint civilian-military effort to build a stronger nation. A small but dedicated South Vietnamese Navy is hard at work in an effort to deny the use of the rivers and coastal waters as supply routes for the Viet Cong. To bring knowledge of new techniques which can increase efficiency, a United States Military Assistance Command has been established. American Navy advisors work with the Vietnamese and help in many phases of training. HEDSUPACT, the United States Navy Headquarters Support Activity, has been established in Saigon. Already in mid-1964, the American Navy is in Vietnam. At the end of July 1964, the United States Military Assistance Command reports an increase in Viet Cong forces in South Vietnam. Then the Navy's role in Vietnam suddenly expands. On August 2nd, the United States Navy destroyer Maddox, on patrol in international waters of the Gulf of Tonkin, begins to track 3 unknown craft approaching from the northwest. They are identified as North Vietnamese PT boats, armed with torpedoes and 37mm guns. When warnings from the Maddox fail to stop the oncoming PT boats, she opens fire. The attack prompts the United States to strengthen its ready defense capabilities.
The destroyer was carrying out a mission of patrol in those waters, in international waters. When it was attacked, it replied to the attack. It continued to carry out its mission today and will do so the remainder of this week. In the same waters, the President has asked that the destroyer force be doubled and that an air cap, a combat air patrol, be available at all times on call to it. And as I think you know, he's issued instructions that in the event of a further attack upon our vessels in international waters, we are to respond with the objective of destroying the attackers.
The Maddox, joined by the destroyer Sea Turner Joy, resumes its routine patrol. But the next night, the men on watch in the 2 destroyers once again detect unidentified contacts on radar. The attack by the North Vietnamese boats is renewed. After a 3-hour running battle in which 2 of the PT boats are sunk, the attackers break contact.
My fellow Americans, as President and Commander-in-Chief, It is my duty to the American people to report that renewed hostile actions against United States ships on the high seas in the Gulf of Tonkin have today required me to order the military forces of the United States to take action in reply. The performance of commanders and crews in this engagement is in the highest tradition of the United States Navy. But repeated acts of violence against the armed forces of the United States must be met not only with alert defense, but with positive reply.
By the end of March 1965, air operations from Navy carriers in the South China Sea are underway on a daily basis. Also in March, in Operation Dagger Thrust, an integrated Navy-Marine Corps effort, 7th Fleet Marines land at Da Nang, then at Chu Lai, and later on the Vung Mu Peninsula. On land, the Allied forces fight to turn the tide of conflict from a retreating defense against guerrilla attacks to an offensive strategy designed to defeat the Viet Cong. During 1965, the United States Navy, with its ability to move quickly on short notice, is called upon to reinforce the United States position. In the short time since the Tonkin Gulf incident, American naval power rapidly expands from a supporting role to a full-fledged naval task force. Embodied in the forces of the United States 7th Fleet is almost every facet of modern naval power. Cruisers like the USS Canberra are built for fast speeds and long endurance. The destroyer, indispensable to any naval action, is the workhorse of the fleet. The USS Bainbridge, a destroyer leader, is largest of the destroyer class, the world's first nuclear-powered guided missile frigate. Both cruisers and destroyers, in addition to their traditional deep water roles, have been called upon to play a special role in Vietnam.
Delta, this is Gamma 26 Charlie. Target number 201, bearing 13.
Whenever the need arises, ships of the 7th Fleet move quickly into position along the coast of Vietnam, take their directions from a forward air controller or spotter who is in visual contact with the enemy.
Fire for effect, over.
This is naval gunfire support, a mobile source of big gun reinforcement for friendly troops ashore. Meanwhile, standing farther offshore is the heart of the fighting fleet. In Vietnam, as never before, the aircraft carrier has proven her worth. From the huge Kitty Hawk to the even larger nuclear-powered Enterprise, the Navy's attack carriers have held the balance of power.
Stand by to start. The F4s, the A6s, the A1, and the A3.
Stand clear of the jet intakes and exhausts on the A4s.
You're clear to start. The F4s, the A6s, the A1, and the A3.
Fast, mobile, independent of political boundaries and agreements, the carrier can ready her flight deck on short notice, launch her air power as required. The modern attack carrier is a carefully coordinated organization of countless complex pieces of hardware and of hundreds of men who make the hardware work.
389. Smoke watch reports black smoke, 3 alpha boiler.
All right, clear the stacks up, Roger.
From yeoman to machinist's mate, many of the men below decks work at the important traditional jobs, familiar in naval ships throughout the world.
What is the IFF on contact 330 approximately?
Other men must master newer skills and disciplines required by new technologies. In the Combat Information Center, equipped with the latest facilities for rapid communication and data handling, a complete picture of the surrounding tactical situation is kept up to the minute by sophisticated electronic and computerized systems.
Your pigeons 160, 80 miles, steer home plate, over.
In other spaces and compartments, the carrier is equipped to keep almost anything she carries, from a coffee pot to complex avionics gear in combat-ready condition.
This event 7 Delta will be running the Route 14 route recce from Pleiku down to Ban Mateau. There should be automatic weapons along the route. There's some artillery fire down just north of Ban Mateau.
In a sense, the final responsibility for the success of the carrier's mission rests with a small group of men whose job is to master the intricate operation of a $1 million fighting machine, the modern jet aircraft.
Okay, everybody get your radios and get the data down off the board here and you'll be ready to man them.
The carrier's primary mission is to put these men and their planes in the air and on target. Her mix of fighters, attack aircraft, and reconnaissance planes extends the carrier's strength for hundreds of miles. They seek out the enemy's strong points and selectively place striking power on targets where it will be most effective. Enemy supply routes and storage depots, dams and airfields, barracks and troop concentrations. One of the best examples of the range and flexibility of naval power is the modern amphibious operation, a coordinated Navy-Marine Corps action designed to bring force in readiness wherever it's needed, put it ashore, and hold a piece of ground. In the years since World War II, amphibious landing techniques have been refined, modernized, and speeded up. In Vietnam, amphibious assaults by forces of the United States 7th Fleet have driven the Viet Cong from many strongholds along the coast. It is typical of the cooperative effort in Vietnam that in this operation, a Navy amphibious ship provides a landing platform and fresh ammunition for Army helicopters, which will provide air support for United States and South Vietnamese soldiers and Marines on shore. One of the newest concepts in strike warfare is built around the LPH, or Amphibious Assault Ship, a completely equipped floating helicopter base with complete facilities for the service and control of an airborne assault.
Clearwater Control, this is Bravo 8-1, airborne at 30, flight of 16, event 101-4, over.
Bravo 8-1, this is Clearwater. Roger. Your pigeons to Point Cairo, 28014, over.
This is 8-1, roger out.
Introduction of the helicopter to amphibious operations has precipitated the greatest single tactical innovation since the Second World War, the technique of vertical envelopment. Marines are swiftly airlifted to land behind enemy positions, while the rest of the force assaults the beach. Completion of the mission is in the hands of the Fleet Marine, the Navy's most competent means of extending its power inland. It may be that the most unusual thing about the American Navy in Vietnam is the fact that it has played such an important role in Vietnam. The fact that the Navy, while it has carried out a wide range of assignments at sea, has also contributed heavily to the effort along the coast, in the rivers, and on shore. One of of the most important jobs is the continuing patrol of Vietnamese coastal waters. Airborne patrols are flown day and night, around the clock, to ensure against infiltration of supplies and ammunition from the north.
Clean cut. This is Bluebird 30.
Large cargo jump at position X-ray Romeo 7386.
Request surface units investigate.
Bluebird 30, this is Clean Cut. Roger out. Suspicious contact report, sir? Very well, thank you.
In Saigon, at the command center of U.S. Naval Forces, Vietnam, naval activities throughout the country are coordinated.
Mr. Epling, Bluebird 30 aircraft has a suspicious contact here in the restricted zone. He says it's a large...
One of the major efforts of this command is Operation Market Time, the Navy's name for the important task of coastal surveillance.
We have a destroyer and a WPB in the area. I recommend we send the destroyer down there to investigate this contact.
In this case, a destroyer escort is assigned to examine a suspicious contact reported by Air Patrol.
Hold it for a second.
Vietnamese Navy liaison officers assigned to each American ship check identity papers and cargo manifests. To be certain that an innocent cargo of fish or rice does not conceal Viet Cong guns, supplies, and ammunition, holds are open and inspected. Each day brings thousands of fishing and cargo junks to the river and coastal waters of Vietnam. The enormous task of Operation Market Time is to guard against the use of this normal marketing activity as a cover for smuggling and infiltration by the Viet Cong. In addition to destroyers and minesweepers, market time patrols are conducted by high-speed patrol craft called swift boats, and by cutters of the United States Coast Guard, whose crews are well experienced in this kind of work. One of the newest additions to the patrol efforts in Vietnam is the Navy's PBR. The PBR is a 31-foot plastic-hulled, water jet-propelled craft designed for high-speed operation in very shallow water. Quiet and highly maneuverable, it is used in Operation Game Warden, whose mission is to prohibit all Viet Cong movement in the Mekong River Delta. Patrols along the coast are coordinated with the Vietnamese Navy through its regional coastal surveillance centers, just as naval activities at all levels are coordinated between American and Vietnamese. Can Tho on the Bassac River is headquarters for Vietnamese River Assault Group 25. Here and at other bases throughout the country, officers and men of the United States Naval Advisory Group perform one of the most important roles of the American Navy in Vietnam. Side by side with his Vietnamese counterpart, the American advisor helps to fulfill the mission of the River Assault Group, to deny the waterways and hiding places of the Mekong Delta to the Viet Cong.
I suggest we alert the RAG patrols to keep a careful eye on this area for the next couple nights. Yeah.
A typical operation begins shortly after midnight as troops load aboard the assault boats and start upriver. By the next morning, the assault group, which has moved several miles upriver to close with the Viet Cong force, launches its attack. In terms of numbers, these men who ride the river assault boats are few. In terms of the overall Navy commitment, their contribution is great. At a junk force base in the Delta near the small fishing village of Tiem Tom, another U.S. naval advisor lives and works day in, day out with the men of Vietnamese Coastal Group 37. With his counterparts, the base commander, he takes part in every phase of the daily routine.
Papers all okay?
Together, they carry out the daily patrols, constantly checking against the possible infiltration of Viet Cong supplies on the river waterways. Together, they share the meals prepared by the commander's wife.
What are we having for dinner tonight?
Chicken.
What's the Vietnamese name for this again?
Chung Dê.
Chung Dê?
Chung Dê, yeah. This is ducks.
Okay, well, Spanish omelet to me. Always be Spanish omelet.
Together, they relax when time permits, discuss their work, and the small matters of personal concern, which often seem insignificant, but which help to bridge the gap between their two widely separated worlds. Other advisors at the Vietnamese Naval Shipyard in Saigon put their experience and skills to work, contribute their knowledge of improved shipbuilding techniques and new construction materials, develop procedures to help increase shipyard efficiency. At Chu Lai and Da Nang, at Tai Ninh and Pleiku, from the Delta to the Central Highlands, the Seabees, naval construction experts, are at work on a wide variety of vital projects. Often working behind the scenes, the Seabees don't make headlines. But without the things they do make, the headlines might never appear. From airfields and roads to hospitals and storage depots, the Navy construction battalions move from project to project, pursuing the accomplishment of their Seabee motto, can do. In addition to the Seabees, the Navy also staffs the OICC, Officer in Charge of Construction, which supervises civilian contractors in the world's largest single construction program. The OICC plans and builds military facilities throughout the country. At Saigon, the Navy has established the major medical facility for United States and allied personnel. The quality of medical service in Vietnam has reduced mortality from battlefield casualties to an unprecedented low. By the end of 1965, Head SUPACT, the in-country support activity, has grown into the Navy's largest single overseas shore command. And by June 1966, when it has been officially turned over to the Army, it is serving as chauffeur, mechanic, administrator, electrician, doctor, and policeman. It is generating electric power, providing warehouse facilities, operating an airline, and performing other services for thousands of allied personnel. To the north, at the port city of Da Nang, another United States naval support activity has been activated and is growing rapidly. These facilities, which will meet the demands of an expanded logistics support operation, include provisions for another large naval hospital. For the officers and men of the Navy and Marine Corps who serve on shore, the campaign in Vietnam is not only military in nature. Seabee technical assistance teams have helped with scores of civilian projects which will improve conditions for the South Vietnamese people. Roads, bridges, buildings, security hamlets to provide safety from Viet Cong terrorism. Clinics conducted by Navy doctors, dentists, and corpsmen have brought medical treatment and supplies to areas where they might otherwise never have been. Through people-to-people projects of many kinds, these men are working to win the confidence and restore the hopes of the Vietnamese through joint civilian-military action. This, too, is the American Navy in Vietnam. In terms of the variety and scope of the experience, Vietnam has already written a new chapter in the annals of naval history. Never before has the potential of the Navy Marine team been so fully realized. And yet, one important thing remains unchanged. The success of the overall effort will rely, as it always has, upon the acts of the individual man. Whatever credit is due will rest with many thousands of individual men who stand behind the aircraft, the ships, the boats, and the rifles from the Delta to the South China Sea. And whether he serves ashore, or in the rivers and coastal waters, at sea or in the skies above, he will shoulder the responsibility for final success or failure, and he will be the one to make the needed sacrifice. And it is important to remember that no matter what his job or where his duty, he is the Navy's greatest single asset, the individual man. This is the American Navy in Vietnam, moving quickly where and when needed, displaying the flexibility of modern sea power, controlling the seas, extending its influence on land, and holding superiority in the air, a three-way force for peace, geared to meet aggression at any spot on the globe.